Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's community conversation. This series by StratusLIVE is designed to have interactive discussions on trends, challenges, best practices within the nonprofit industry. And we feature industry leaders, experts, practitioners as they're offering insights on topics that might be keeping all of us up at night, as we'd like to say. But again, very excited to have all of you on this call today. And a couple of quick housekeeping items before we jump in to our conversation. The session is being recorded, so you will receive a link to the recording and any other relevant information that we might cover throughout the course of this discussion. If you have any questions for either Gary or Ryan, feel free to place those into the chat or the questions panel, and we will have some time at the end to address those. And with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our two speakers for today. First, we have Gary Carr, the Chief Financial Officer of StratusLIVE. Gary has over 25 years of experience within nonprofit technology and the corporate social responsibility space. And we're really excited to have our partners at Dotdigital and Ryan St. Peter joining us today. He's a seasoned digital engagement strategist at Dotdigital, and he specializes in helping organizations build meaningful relationships with their supporters. Today's conversation is about how are we creating consumer-like experiences and what that means right now, especially as we're approaching year-end giving. We're in the midst of year-end giving. We're just chatting about how next week is Thanksgiving and what that means for the nonprofit industry right now. Without further ado, our first big question for Ryan: what does it mean to put donors first? Why is this so essential for nonprofits?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Kelly. Excited to be here today. So, to give everyone a little bit of background, so here at Dotdigital, I primarily focus working with two groups of customers. So, we work with both e-commerce and major retailers on one side of our business, and on the other side of our business, we're working with StratusLIVE partners and customers, especially within the nonprofit space. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to be here today is because what we're talking about really combines two of my big passions. So when you think about e-commerce and how to create that customer first approach and really driving dynamic personalization and creating and crafting a customer journey highlights one of my passions. The other side is the nonprofit space. Outside of my work life and hacking customer journeys and abandoned carts, I spend quite a bit of time volunteering. So I've previously been a board member for Echelon, which is the young professionals branch of the Salvation Army. I've been the marketing chair for my local food pantry here in Wisconsin, helping them to not only increase on the donation side, but also increase gifts of food and interacting and thanking donors. And to really get to the question, when I start to think about putting donors first, we're in a sense taking a little bit of that consumer approach. But what I really want to ask everyone on this call to do when we think about addressing that concept is really putting yourself, taking a little field trip in your mind, if you will, to who am I as a donor? And really putting yourself in that person's shoes. Because when we start to ask those questions, we can start to really unlock a better marketing journey and a more personalized approach to that. So, a couple of examples here. So, when we're putting ourselves in that donor's shoes, we're going to use myself as an example here. I'm coming to your site, I'm interested in the organization, I'm a first time donor. So, questions that I'm thinking about myself is why am I giving? How easy it is to give? What's important to me to see as the results of my dollar donation? Maybe I'm coming back to you and I've been a repeat giver. So I'm giving annually, I might give quarterly around special events that happen within your specific organization's community. Maybe I give annually. So on this example, I think back to like probably one of my favorite Christmas movies, which Christmas with the Cranks. Some of the folks may have seen it, but in the movie, the main characters, Luther and Nora, decide that they're giving up Christmas to go on this Caribbean cruise. And everything breaks loose for it. But as part of that, Luther, who's the Grinch on Christmas, if you will, during this time, decides that they're not doing any charity giving, they're not giving their annual gifts, and Nora put her foot down. So when I'm in that annual giver spot, I also might want to consider, in this case, what else is happening around that donor that would keep them from giving their annual gift? Or maybe on the positive side, did something big happen to them this year where they're able to give a little bit more than usual? So, really, to sum it all up, when we're putting that donor first, we're really just asking ourselves to give consideration to the type of donor and the donor's circumstances, and then starting to tailor our message and to bring them really to be a part of your mission and to starting either for a first time donor, a path to engagement, for that repeat donor, continuous engagement, or for that annual giver, making sure that we understand their circumstances and make it easy for them to come back year after year. So, Kelly, at a basic level, we just want to meet them at their level, is what we talk about when we think of the concept of putting donors first for everything.
Sure. I think that's something too that we think about here at Stratus Live is how can we help support nonprofits in uncovering that donor's unique journey with your organization and where are they coming from?
Absolutely.
What is that first step? Gary, I'm wondering if you have any additional thoughts here given your expertise and experience in this space.
I do. And some of you on the call may be wondering, why is there a finance guy here on this call to talk about donor journeys, right? But there's a very good reason for it, other than I like Kelly and I like Ryan. And that is, this is a time of year, and I'm sure everybody's feeling it, where we're rushing to wrap up our year-end activities. And before we know it, we've got to start thinking and planning about next year. It just feels like there's so much to do. And so
Hmm.
if you're in my world, you hear phrases like, we got to figure out how to do more with less. How do we do more with less? And when Ryan talks about the donor journey, and as we talk a little bit about topics like segmentation and personalization and how technology can help us, the message I want to share with everybody is put aside that do more with less and think about how you do better, right?
Hmm.
That's what we need to do. We need to
100.
figure out not how to do more with less, but how do we do better with either what we have or what we need to get into our systems, with our technologies, with our platforms. And better is the magic word for donor journeys. We've got to think about putting our donors first. We've got to think about the consumer's experience, and the goal is to do it better, not just to do more activities, but to do things better. And I think that's what Ryan's whole worldview is when it comes to how he approaches the questions that we have and that we work on with him. It's like, how can we do better?
100%, Gary. Very well said.
And you highlight and talk about, Gary, this idea of consumer driven experiences. And I think when we all were prepping for this conversation, it's not that it's a word that sometimes thinking of our donors in the lens of consumers isn't necessarily something that we want to jump to directly, but curious from your perspective, Ryan, what do you think when we talk about creating consumer driven experiences for donors? Why is that important? And how does that apply to donors in a nonprofit or philanthropic setting?
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. So I think we all get a little bit gun shy when we talk, especially in the nonprofit space, when we talk about a consumer-driven experience, because it always seems like we're we're asking for money. We're pushing that out there. We're pushing a donation. We're trying to create, as Gary put, more out there instead of focusing on the better. So when I think about consumer-driven experiences, I like to focus less on even thinking from a consumer perspective, but focus on that experience perspective. How do we deliver an experience, and how do we think about those particular questions when we're going about an ask or an appeal? How, back in that donor shoes, like number one, how easy is the process? How do they like to be connected with? I think back to For example, my grandparents, when they were with us, they gave to charitable organizations and causes that were near and dear to them every year. But I can't see my grandma going online and doing an online sort of donation. However, I did see her regularly engaging with different email content and
Mhm.
engaging with those different emails and serving up how they donated into the past and making it really easy by supplying the right message that just says, hey, we know you gave about this time last year. Here's our address. Here's your donor manager. Making it really easy for them to give in the method that they would like to do that. And then the other half of thinking about a consumer experience is with this, think about how your favorite brands, and that could be a retail store, it could be a particular product, it could be an online store. How do they make you feel? So that favorite shirt, that favorite sweater that you wear and you always look forward to buying, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel after you've purchased it and you're wearing it? Do you feel good about wearing it? Do you feel good about where your dollars went? Do you feel like you're getting value from your spend and really giving back to that particular in the nonprofit space to that particular organization's goals that align with your goals and your dollars personally? And really, with it, it goes back to the second half is just making it easy to give. How do they connect with the brand to give a certain feeling? How did you feel afterwards? And when I say consumer driven experiences, it really means just focusing on those areas to provide the right tools at the right time through the right channel to, at the end of the day, help boost your organization's fundraising in a way that the consumer or your donors are comfortable with and making them feel that value and making them feel like the gift they gave. We know it's really special, but letting them know it's really special, how it made an impact to engage them for future opportunities that are out there. Gary, I don't know, would you have anything that you would add to that on the from your perspective on the finance side?
Thanks. I don't know if it's a finance comment or not, but
Oh yeah. Or being a
I think it's
consumer or a
important.
donor.
I think it's important. Most organizations, most nonprofits, we're not going to advise that you start using the term consumer when you are outwardly talking to your
Yeah.
market or talking to your donors. But it's important to remember that there are aspects of consumers and consumerization that we need to be very mindful of. For example, consumers have choices, lots of choices, right? We live in a consumer driven economy. Consumers have, when we think of donors, and I know that I used to think this way. I've worked at nonprofits. I've helped co-found a nonprofit that was helping kids with motor disabilities. We always thought what we were doing was special and unique, and we were so mission driven. And we didn't always stop to think about connecting with the donor. We just rushed to tell the donor about everything we were doing, or the prospective donor. What we're doing is great with these kids. Let me tell you about it. Let me show you about it. And we rush past that step of trying to understand who that donor might be, what the background, where they might be coming from, how we could meet one of their needs as they were helping us meet our needs. And remembering that consumers have choices, so donors have plenty of choices, and wanting to take that step through segmentation, through personalization, in order to better understand who our potential donor is, will help us to be more successful, which will drive that bottom line. There's my finance comment. It'll help us drive that bottom line by doing a better job of understanding that.
$100%, Gary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And along with that, you hit the nail on the head. Consumers have choices. They have choices in where their dollars are going to, and making those
Right.
dollars feel important and showing the value that they're bringing to your organization and the causes that are important to them are what help bring the dollars to the bottom line. And by raising all nonprofits by really targeting that mindset of showing that value to what the dollars are going to, and we can pull more dollars for everyone and still really set apart each organization individually.
No.
Yeah. In fact, Ryan, if you remember when we were prepping for this event, we were talking about a couple of different examples. One of them was an SPCA. And we were just kicking back and forth. If we were running an SPCA and we know that our donors love animals, okay, that's great. But if we were able to segment our donors and know which ones loved cats and which ones loved dogs, our messaging might be a little bit different, or we might be inviting our donors and our constituents to participate in different events or come support us in different ways. And I know that's a very simple example for everybody, but at the same time, it might be really helpful if we take the extra step to get to know that Gary likes cats and Kelly likes dogs. So maybe there are opportunities to target messaging towards us knowing that. And that's part of how we want to use or recommend we use technology as we build profiles and record information about our donors as we engage with them, as they interact with us. Sometimes it's those little details that will show up in a data analysis and give us an insight to say, oh, next year when we're doing this same event, maybe we should separate the cat lovers from the dog lovers and message them differently, and we will get a better turnout. I don't
Yeah,
know
Gary,
if maybe you remember that conversation, but we got off on a
I
real tangent with that one.
I do, and I have my fur baby is at doggy daycare today, but I can guarantee you if
There.
someone puts a dog that's in need in an email message, and I love all animals, dogs, cats, regardless, but if someone puts a dog in need, let me tell you, my purse straps or my checkbook is going to fall right open in order to help them out. So tailoring that right message to me and delivering that at scale, absolutely a great point, Gary.
Can you comment on that, delivering at scale? Can you elaborate there?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about a little bit the role of technology and messaging within like donor-centric or donor-centric experiences, first of all, one of the things that we love working about StratusLIVE is just the amount of data that your organizations on this call are storing about their donors, and they're inputting into a system or into StratusLIVE. What we're able to do, or what we like to help our customers do, is to start to take that next step with it and really start to unlock that data, unsilo it, if you will. When you think about the basics of email, batching and blasting, sending out your same message to everyone, is that going to see some results? Absolutely. But when you start to think about taking it to the next steps, we start to think about some of those concepts that you mentioned earlier, Gary. So segmentation, a big one. So we use the cats and dogs example for it. There are other examples of it. So, for example, someone who may donate to a cancer society of sorts, or someone who may donate to another organization. For example, another organization that's out there for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is one of them that I give to. Do I have a relative or do I have a person who's been impacted by the disease versus am I just volunteering with it? Might be a way to think about it. The other way when we talk about segmentation is just to analyze previous historical data on donations themselves, really looking at my messaging between those three groups of people that we started talking about at the beginning of this call. Are they a first-time donor? Have they
Mhm.
donated? Have they donated before? If so, how many times? What's the frequency of their donations? And then do they have planned giving or do they do workplace giving? All different concepts that we want to consider. And what segmentation allows us to do is start to unlock some of those concepts. So, segmenting people into those three groups: planned giving, first time giving, annual repeat giving can allow my message to be targeted back to those very, very basic groups, but at the same time, deliver a really personalized message to them to deliver a different sort of appeal. Like, why should I donate for the first time versus why should I donate again? Was a very different message that you can deliver to your donors and to your constituents. Um, and as far as scaling goes, the best part about segmentation is that through a tool like we're using with Dotdigital, your segmentation happens automatically. So as you're going in and as you're updating those donation fields, those individual data field attributes that you might store on a data or on an individual donor, that's all going to flow directly into a tool like Dotdigital, And then those segments are automatically going to update to allow you to trigger potentially automated messages. So, developing an initial welcome series that's designed to get them to donate for the first time. Once they've donated that first time, sending that thank you message that ties to a specific reason why they're attached to the cause or why they donated, and still to continue to deliver that personalized messaging. And what I tell all of my customers to do is there are many advanced concepts that we can execute against, but to start very basic, start to thinking about really executing on a few simple segments. If you've gone from a batch and blast to approach to a more advanced tool, and think about maybe the cause, that donation frequency, and then whether or not they've donated before and incorporating that within your series.
I I love that. I love those suggestions. I think something that came up in our prep as well is it just takes getting curious about our data and looking for anomalies within an appeal maybe that was given at this time last year versus this year. And I think that's something that we really encourage our clients to do
Hmm.
is to dig in, is to get curious, look at that data. We also encourage folks to do LIBA and SIBA reports. I'm sure many folks on this call do that, who donated last year but not this year, some years but not this year, and dig in and dive in as a starting point to at least begin to consider other avenues or other pathways or other asks or other marketing channels, to Ryan's point, that we can tap into to see how do we engage some of those folks. I know another question that we want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up here is why do we think a consumer driven experience or offering a consumer driven experience is really important at the year end? What does that maybe offer to nonprofits as they conclude this annual year and approach 2025? Do either of you have any particular thoughts on what that might mean for year end giving? Gary?
For year-end giving, just a couple of quick thoughts. Right, it's November the 19th. A lot of the plans are not, we're not building plans right now, we're executing. And we're going to be executing as we go through the remaining 5 or 6 weeks of the year. So even as we are executing plans that have been laid and messages that have been prepared, I think it's worth the look to look at the cohorts, look at how we're segmenting, look at who is going to receive which message one more time before they get out the door. Because you, with a little bit of extra effort, one more round of review, one more step in your planning, you may be able to improve your response rate by a percentage point. And that percentage point may result in a lot of new money coming in or picking up a lot of lost donors, skip givers, wherever that focus is. So while it feels like we're right at the end of the year and it feels like it's too late to change things, I wouldn't say go change your plans, but I would say give it another review. Look for opportunities to work in some of the good advice that Ryan has been sharing with us in particular. He's the expert at this, and it's always worth one more review.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree completely with that, Gary. Is just your plans are in place, but continue to look through opportunities between now and the end of the year. Look for some great examples, or maybe customers who have recently subscribed to your newsletter, uh,
Mm.
or subscribe for more information and sending out an additional appeal to those folks. Make sure that you're looking at people who donated last year during this time and using some of that segmentation and who have not yet donated this year and hitting those folks hard and heavy with everything. And then the last piece I would add is our plans now are really what we're going to start to want to consider as you're making your plans for next year. So thinking future forward, even once you've made those tweaks or those changes, and thinking about, okay, after this holiday season in January, who donated before during my holiday season and who didn't donate, I need to win them back and do some re-engagement around there. Who were my first time donors during this particular season? And how am I going to keep them engaged and identify new opportunities for them to donate, for them to volunteer, for them to come to my events that I'm holding throughout the year as well. Thinking about the plans that you have in place now, how you can leverage the data that comes out of them in order to really set yourself up for a successful 2025.
Awesome. I will go ahead and share my screen again and showcase both Ryan's email, Gary's email. Feel free, as we're wrapping up and concluding things, if you have any questions for the two of them, place those into the chat. We'll get those addressed. If Ryan or Gary, if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with those on the call today, happy to hear that as well. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. And given our listeners' ideas on how they can make simple changes between now and year end to really get a lot out of their year end giving. We're really grateful for everyone for spending this half hour with us. Grateful to the Dotdigital team for participating in this conversation with us. Gary, Ryan, any final thoughts before we sign off?
That one additional review of your plan as you're executing, or as you're executing multiple activities, give it the extra review, take the extra step, and make sure you're documenting everything, tracking and recording and logging, because that will prepare you better for next year. And next year's almost here as well. Ryan?
100%, Gary. And the only thing that I would add to that is when you're doing that last review is challenge yourself to not think of it from being a marketer for your organization or a CRM administrator. Challenge yourself to think of it like, I am a donor coming to my organization. What is going to make the impact? And then implement or think about, how can I easily implement and make those changes? Because those will make a difference, because they're coming from that part of you that connects you with your cause and connects the consumer or the donor to their cause as well.
I love that. Thank you both so much for participating today, and thank you all for joining us for this conversation. As we mentioned at the beginning of the call, you'll receive a link to the recording in case you want to listen to this again, but I really appreciate everyone's time, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.